You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
You know, one of the things I say all the time to anybody looking to buy a home, because everything that you're talking about new construction, about the reasons to shy away from it.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. It's your boy, your host, Ron Tillman, and you are with me for another episode of Walk in Victory. Speaking of victory, walk.
Warning, this is a public service announcement. The Walk in Victory podcast is where we have conversations purposed to evolve lives. You may not want to evolve. Then tune into another bleeping podcast. Everyone else, enjoy the show. And here's our host.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening and or where you're listening from. It's your boy, your host, Ron Tillman, and you are with me for another episode of Walk in Victory. Speaking of victory walks, our path may include some learning curves or learning, I don't want to say curve, some lessons that will go on to help us in our future. And those lessons are sometimes painful. But I was in construction first business. Had an opportunity to do some property management, and which led into me doing some real estate deals. But before when I was doing deals, I'll start this way. Because of my lack of knowledge about I was trying to be just getting a referral fee. So, it'd be like the guy would, hey man, I know you in construction, so if you find something you haven't, we can just call me, let me know, and I'll give you a piece of the action. And who doesn't want a piece of the action, right? A piece of action is actually sometimes great. Until I did a deal in Brooklyn right before, or right during gentrification was happening. I got $20,000 off of a deal. And we worked hard on this deal because there was a lot of things that me and my partner had to do in order to make sure it happened. And a year later, the deal sold for like 1.5 million. And I was like, it only took a year for that deal to really matriculate. I need to learn the formula so that I won't just be in the middle of a deal happy with clubs. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't counting someone else's profit. I was looking at my knowledge about something that I was involved in, and I wasn't happy with my knowledge base. It's different. Wasn't upset because he made money, but the fact that he was able to make the money that he made, the fact that the seller could have done a few simple things in order to keep the property. The seller didn't have the tools. I didn't have the tools. So I can't get mad at the person who has the tools and walk away with the lion's share. But what I could do, and what I did do, was start to educate myself in the realms of real estate. I don't no longer do real estate or anything like that now, but I am knowledgeable about the industry because of my years of doing it. And, I was just thinking the other day, I'm like, hey man, I might as well get back into it because there's no better thing than being able to find, buy, and then I was selling. If I would have known better again, I would have been holding and I would still have property. Today we're going to be talking to David about all things real estate. Hey, how are you doing, David?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me, my friend.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. If you don't mind telling our audience a little bit about what you do and why did I open up this conversation centered around real estate?
Yeah, well, I have been in real estate for 18 years, and it was actually a second part of my life. During my 20s, I was in showbiz out here in Hollywood. And after I retired that career, like you, I was just kind of always interested in it. And I jumped in, started as a real estate investor, and then I ended up selling residential real estate because the investment game, I quickly learned that you need to be on top of all those formulas that you're talking about. And I didn't feel like I was in a position to really be, doing it for myself or actually educating other people. Um, and fast forward, and after about a dozen years in residential real estate, back in 2018, I decided to help what I found the most disrespected and ignored people in real estate, and that's the first-time home buyers. Because for them, it's not just buying a home, but kind of like, when you're looking at the formulas for them, especially now with the high rents, the formula of figuring out how to own a home and build your family's financial stability and wealth became a passion of mine. So for the last 5 years now, I've had a podcast and a YouTube channel on how to buy a home. And what I'm doing is trying to do my best to become the nation's largest educator and empowerment person to help first-time home buyers so that they have some kind of clue what's going on with the industry. Because as you found out, it can get confusing real fast.
Yeah, so let's break down some of the misnomers about first-time home buying. Most people think that when they hear that phrase, that this has to be my first house.
Yep.
Can
Yeah, I was going to say, I hear that. I hear a lot of people all the time. People reach out to me and say, I bought a home 8 years ago. I pretty much got dragged through the transaction and I have no idea. So now I need to sell my house and buy another one, but I feel like I'm a first-time home buyer. So that's one of the psychological part of it is depending on who you had supporting you the first time through, you might feel like you're doing it for the first time, even though you're doing it all over again. And from the other side of things, what people don't understand is that a lot of people talk about first-time home buyer grants or programs or down payment assistance. A lot of those programs are available to people after they've already purchased a home. Sometimes it can be if you haven't purchased a home in 3 years or 5 years. So there's stuff out there for everybody at every different phase.
How do people go about the research to find out where they can find those programs, whether it's a NACA or there's some local in New York, they have local industries for like police officers or city workers and things like that. How do people go about finding those programs to help them along their road?
All right, Nayron, do you want the real? I mean, do you want the real?
That's
Because
what
I'm
we
going to
do
give it
here.
to you.
That's what we do here.
All right. NACA sucks. Home for Heroes sucks. They're awful. They're government programs. If you want to buy a home and have the same process you have at the DMV or, a VA hospital, then go for it. Back in 2018, my wife looked at me and said, I had a team. I was doing a big real estate. My wife looked at me and said, I'm by Disneyland. So all my first time home buyers over the years are my friends that worked because I worked there in high school and college. And my wife goes, "You're only happy when you work with the people at Disneyland." And that was mostly my first time home buyers. So I said, all right, let me give them the real deal. So pulling back the curtain on the real estate industry, the real estate industry overall absolutely completely ignores the first time home buyers. Thus, the programs that are set up for them are woefully underfunded. For instance, with a NACA deal, we're about to go into 2025. We've had bidding wars for the last few years because the inventory is so low. I'm telling you, that's going to get way worse in 2025. Like they say, more houses are going to come out, but what's going to happen is more buyers are going to come out. So when you're in a bidding war, if you use NACA, a NACA loan is so complicated, so convoluted, it takes so many different pieces. God bless them for trying to help people out. But here's the industry secret. You mentioned it, your individual local programs. First time home buyer down payment assistance, it varies not only state to state, county to county, and sometimes municipality to municipality or city to city. There are local programs. That's why aligning yourself with a local pro, it's far better to find a local realtor and a local lender who know everything that's going on with the business and what's happening in your specific region. And they can give you the deals and let you know which programs you qualify for. And most importantly, which ones are going to make your offer still look acceptable. Last year, we had 26% cash buyers, the highest we've ever had. And so if you're coming in with a low down payment or a down payment assistance program, your offer needs to be written in the most glorious fashion so that it gets to the top of the pile.
That's cool and very interesting point. When you talk about what you're doing from the podcast from empowerment do you have a connection with some local or municipal agents and lenders that when you say, hey, as you're listening to me, these are guys that I know work well, or how do you go about that, or you stay out of that end of the deal?
Well, I started this whole project to help my local business, all my Southern California people, all my Disney peeps. That was the idea, Nairon. And then people called me and said, bro, who do you have in Nashville? Who do you have in Chicago?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've been in the business, over a decade, reached out to all my friends, and the progression of where we are now with how to buy a home is that most what they call referral-based real estate is someone goes on YouTube, someone does whatever, and then they have other agents pay them to be part of their network. I went the other way, and I have fired more people than I actually have in my little group. So I have a super elite group. I call them the unicorns because I actually said it one day on the podcast, it rolled off my tongue because I was watching SportsCenter, and when there's a freak, someone who's like, baseball player is 5'2", or a football player who's 350 pounds but can run a 4.840, and that guy's a unicorn. So they are, because unfortunately the real estate industry, it's way too easy to get a license. There are 1.5 million realtors, but last year, over 700,000, 47% of realtors did not sell one home in 2024. So that's why I have an elite group. Answering your question, yeah, if you want a unicorn, you can ask me for one. But the other thing about the How to Buy a Home platform that I'm trying to change the game and start a revolution is you do you, baby. Come on in, learn everything you want. It's all free, and you can go find your own unicorn, or you can ask us for the vetted professionals that we have. Because what I found in the game is it's not sorcery. It's not getting a quick deal. I don't take pictures in front of a Lamborghini to try to tell you how to get rich quick. You know what I mean? I just tell people there is a way to do this. Imagine your uncle has been in real estate for 40 years and you know that. And even though he's cringy and tells dad jokes, then you still call your cringy uncle, and that's me. I'm the cringy uncle on the microphone. All I do is tell you, if you want to do it, here's some of the secret ways to do it in your area.
When we look at trending markets, like, first of all, I always tell people, stay away from when you want to buy anything. Well, I'm gonna do it too. I'll start with new construction. When I'm talking to people, I tend to tell homeowners to stay away from new construction because
I understand.
they dazzle you with brilliance and baffle you with BS. You know what I mean? The countertop,
Yes, sir.
the countertops, and then the eye points. And when you're buying a home for the first time, especially being in construction, you're still going to want to put your own touches on it. And you're going to mark up the price sometimes, depending, in that area of California, I've seen price markups 100 and some odd %. When if you use your imagination and go in on something that doesn't look aesthetically pleasing, educate yourself on how to put together your crew, you can add your own value, your own style, and some of the houses that were built early on are more sturdier anyway. That's a whole nother thing. But what do you say to that? If I brought that conversation up?
Well, the good thing is that, because I've listened to your podcast, I know that you appreciate imagination.
Yes.
I know that's a big part of who you are. And so the idea that real estate is personal cannot be emphasized enough. What I'm finding, and again, I'm 54, but when I'm talking to Generation X and I'm Gen X. When I talk to millennials and Gen Z, they've had it a lot more information than we have.
Yes.
They have, you know what I mean? I was doing my research and I found out that Yelp is so old that right now, the average first-time home buyer has had Yelp since they were 16 years old. So, like, they've been looking at reviews since the time they started young adulthood. They've had, we had to call our crazy uncle or ask our mom and dad or look at my dad's Consumer Reports magazine to figure out what car I was going to buy. So this generation has an opportunity to do more research. The downside of that is that they put everything into a spreadsheet and it's a stop or go. So is new construction right for everyone? It's not a yes, it is, or no, it isn't. We have to, I would literally have to talk to someone for 2 hours to find out everything about their own individual situation on both fronts. We're talking financial and personal. Because what is the goal of this? What is the goal for you and your family? How important is a yard? Do you need to be close to neighbors? Because most new construction, they're going to squeeze as many homes as they can on that plot.
Yeah.
So you're going to be right next to someone. But so that's my caveat. Now, to answer your question, I agree that there are some generalities where you're going to overpay for new construction and where, as you said, it's kind of like, a car today versus a car from the 50s. Steel versus plastic, baby. It absolutely changes, the durability of something. But then we have to talk about wear and tear if we're going to go on the opposite side of that. So there are some people that are not handy at all, don't enjoy hiring people. And so there is a little bit of, hey, if you want to overpay for the knowledge that you're not going to have to pay for a foundation repair or a roof repair or a major repair in the first 7 to 10 years, then new construction can work for you.
Yeah.
And then here's the big inside secret. those builders want to get the hell out. They want to build homes
And move on.
and they want to get out. When they're at the end, this year, I've had listeners that have reached out to us at How to Buy a Home and told us, oh my goodness, we were looking at resale homes and we told our agent, we absolutely do not want an HOA. So of course they're looking at resale, and they're looking at the security, but what they want is just a little bit out of their budget. So one day they were in a home and they turned to the agent and they said, I interviewed these people and had them on the podcast and they told this story. They were like, okay, fine. That's fine. We'll do HOA. So while they're standing in another open house or a home that an appointment that the realtor had set up for them, she dials up, calls the builder, and he goes, yeah, we're trying to finish this out. We're at the end. We got a model. They go over. The builder offered them 4.99% interest rate for 30 years when at the time when they were shopping, interest rates were at 6.99%.
Ooh.
So sometimes you can take advantage of, now you might end up being in exactly what you talked about. It might be already built. So you don't get to pick the countertops. You don't get to pick the flooring, but you might end up getting a loan deal. I heard in Austin, Texas, they were giving away 3.99% for 30 years just to try to dump a bunch of homes. Same thing in Pensacola, Florida.
It's funny that you say that though, and now again tapping into imagination. A lot of times builders have a medium in between that can slow down the process. But here, this particular story, the guy calls the builder directly. So he's dealing with the agent that that process. So for those of you who are listening, what happens in those new construction sites, you have a builder, they build a model, they have funding and everything in place. They hire a lending agent who sits in the model, who goes and show the model. So that agent has to be paid. That drives the price up because that agent works with their lenders. They're going to try to push you sometimes towards their preferred lender, push you towards their preferred intact appraisers and all of that stuff. Everything is right in that house. But going around directly to the lender, the lender is still the builder is still the one on the hook, although he has all these other people that may be speeding up the process or slowing down the process.
Yep.
Going to the builder at the end of a project, you can find value there. And that's one way to look. Maybe would you say to someone, if you're giving out tools for them to put in their bag, you might see a project going up, wait towards the end of the project. Don't be one of the first ones running out hastily when the project first happens.
One of the things I say all the time to anybody looking to buy a home, because everything that you're talking about new construction, about the reasons to shy away from it, they exist, but everything is under the umbrella of timing. Location is supposedly the big, all-time rule in real estate. I say it's timing, because if they are at the beginning of a cycle and they've got 3 or 4 more phases to release, you can go, and you're right though, especially, so the timing of the market next year, there's going to be more buyers than there is inventory. Economics 101, supply and demand. Therefore, you're likely they're likely going to put people in a bidding war, and then you're going to end up paying more than the perceived value of the home, But what you were talking about is really interesting, because they do have a super sneaky thing that the builders do. You are entitled to your own real estate agent, to your buyer's representation. But if you go solo, because you and your partner are cruising around and you see a new one and you go in and you sign your name in, at the fine print at the bottom, if you sign your name in and they have your information, you have to use the builder's agent. so they can make more money. And then you have no one representing you. You have no advocate. So the real trick that I tell everyone is, do not go to new construction on your own. Step back, realize you want to buy a home, and then hire a buyer's agent. Get that buyer's agent and have them show you. The other thing that's going to do is, if you just go on your own and look at homes, like you're talking about, Nayron, you're going to go get someone who is, the buyer agent is going to show you that new home. Then they're going to go, let me show you 5 comparable homes, resale. And then you can do the apples to apples or apples to oranges, depending on how the situation works out.
Yeah. I've lived through that experience. Some things I learned from just being in the industry. Others I learned from being on the buyer side. And thank God that my hat is always on, and I'm some people say I overthink, but no, you're not overthinking. This is a major purchase. And I remember right before, so I took classes with Peter Tonti, and that's where I learned some of the formulas and stuff like that. And I also I was one of the guys who did the Trump University thing, not looking to get a master's degree, but it really was helpful in understanding how to put a deal together and formulas and all of the things that help expand the mind as it relates to real estate. Because there's 2 ways to do real estate. There's the way that everybody else do it, and then there's the way to really make some money.
Well, and that's where your first home can be your foundation. Now, I'll help a lot of people who will buy a home and they're doing it simply because their rent is out of control and they can pay the same or a little bit more. And now they can kind of use their home as their retirement. Now, there are some people that come to me and they're like, okay, I want to buy a home, and then I want to start thinking about what's next. So what I'll do is I'll walk them through the process, and, they have to budget, they have to save, they have to get the down payment. And then when they do it and I hand them the keys, I say, cool, I want you to enjoy this for 3 months. Okay. In 3 months, I'm going to call you. And in 3 months, I call them with their lender and we say, all right, you already know how to do this. Let's start it again right now. Start saving like you're going to save up for a down payment. And they're like, what the hell, Sidoni? I just got a house. And I'm like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to save for the next 5 years. I don't care if it's $25 a month, but we're going to save for the next 5 years. And then in 5 years, instead of only having the option to sell your house and trade up, you're already thinking about, what if I keep this first house? What if this becomes my monopoly and I got my little 4 houses before I get that big red hotel? Not to mention the fact that when you own a home, in 5, 10, 15 years, you have the ability to use a home equity line of credit to pull money out of that house and buy investments. The biggest mistake I see young people doing is going, I can't afford a house in my area. San Francisco's too expensive. Seattle's too expensive. Let me go buy an investment property first for $200,000 in Nebraska. And then they try to become a landlord first, but in the meantime, they're still paying $2,500 a month in rent or $3,000 a month in rent, and not understanding that the simplest way to accumulate wealth with real estate when you're starting out is to create a rent replacement strategy. Take your rent. Your rent is the largest line item on your budget every single month. So, but yeah, it's a tool. Like you said, there's 2 ways that people do it. There are people that do it as a form of shelter that then becomes a nice little something at the end of their life. And there are people that use it as a tool to accumulate real wealth, whether they keep that first home. I mean, I talk to so many people my age now who have a great house and they got $500,000-$600,000 worth of equity and they're really happy. And I mean, the reason I started my podcast was because in my 20s, I rented. I was in showbiz and was making money. I lost $104,000 in rent in the 90s. which would have been that's $335,000 in today's money.
Shit.
And I could have put $5,000 down and had a condo nicer than those 4 crappy apartments I rented in North Hollywood.
It's funny.
And the payment would have been the same.
And the payment would have been the same. It's funny. Like I'm thinking, so in New York, we've been through 3 levels of gentrification in major city areas. Brooklyn, Harlem, and Queens all went through what we call gentrification. Those areas were predominantly Black areas. And when I hear the legislation and people in the community-based organizations get their bullhorns and they're saying, they're gentrifying our communities. Like, no, we're selling our communities.
Yes.
They're not
Yes.
coming in just taking it. We're selling because people value, we don't really have these conversations, but they're valuing, oh, I can give you $1 million, but they're not really looking at the deal. Right? The guy is saying he's going to buy a house at $1 million, but you owe $800,000 in mortgage. You don't even have enough money now to buy a bigger, better house. Usually, sometimes when someone sells something, they go to buy something bigger or better. Now you don't even have enough money to have an apartment for a couple of years. So
Yeah. When I started to try to just be a voice of the people, and I've been really lucky that my message has gotten out there, and it's not about me, it's about anybody explaining to people the process. And some of the results I've seen are first generation people that have their families never bought a home. I've interviewed 5 or 6 people that on my podcast, and one of them I cried. These people were like, they were doing a Dave Ramsey budgeting and thinking that they could never buy a home. And God bless Dave Ramsey for helping people get out of debt. But man, he sucks if you're trying to figure out how to buy a home, because he's telling you have to eliminate all of your debt, and then you have to have 6 months in reserves, and then you have to do 20% down and on a 15-year loan, because he thinks that home debt is bad debt. And when we're talking about helping the people, I would rather than gentrification I don't like property values going up with gentrification. I like the people in those neighborhoods getting the education so they can figure out how to keep their homes, how to buy their homes. And so the education is the biggest hole in the real estate service industry. Now, people like you and people like a lot of your listeners who are doing the research on their own, they're changing the game for themselves. But where society is missing, and by society, I actually mean the freaking real estate industry, what they're missing is the education needed to help people stay in their neighborhoods. Let them understand, okay, you've had this home for 20 years. How come you still owe 80% of the loan? Let's talk about that.
I can tell you, we like to put our stuff on our backs. So they refinance for, like, it's been in a situation where the people took so much money off the house. What are you doing?
I've got a stat that I've been saying for years, that because of the crash,
Yes.
I watched all the movies about the crash.
I was a part of it.
And so predatory lending is the big villain, right? That's the bad guy. They're right. I mean, I knew things were going bad when I'm in Southern California and one of my clients was buying a $700,000 home, and 3 weeks later, his gardener was buying a home down the street too. So that was what we called no-no loans. No income verification, no documentation.
Yeah.
So you just said what you made. Now, did that cause the crash? It definitely, all the movies are right. It was part of it.
But that wasn't the
Here's a stat. Starting around the 80s, home equity lines of credit, people being able to use their home as an ATM machine. That started. In 2000, which was kind of the beginning of the rush, we were at $62 billion in home equity lines of credit. So from the 80s to 2000, it took that much time, 15, 20 years, to get to $62 billion. By 2006, it was $262 billion in home equity lines of credit. There were lenders that were knocking on people's doors, not telling them to buy a home, telling them, oh my God, in 2003, your house was worth $200,000. It's 2004, your home is worth $350,000. Hey, a home equity line of credit, the interest is tax deductible. Take out $100,000. So people would do that. And yeah, sure, they'd pay down a credit card or two, but they'd also buy a jet ski. They would get those new Jordans. They would buy. And so people using their home as an ATM machine created the upside down market that created the crash just as much as the predatory lending. So today in these neighborhoods that are going through gentrification, an education platform to help the people that are in their homes to understand how to keep their homes, how to retain the value. And it's not sexy. You're not going to someone saying, hey, I can help you out. What we're going to do is we're going to buy the home down the street for $100,000 less than its value. That's what everybody wants. It's not going to happen that way. You're going to go, oh God, you're 80% loan to value on your home right now. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 13 payments this year.
One payment makes a hell of a difference. Oh, man.
Or paying every 2 weeks. Yep.
And these are the tricks. For those of you who are listening, these are the tricks that people are not privy to. And I've been to seminars. I've been to workshops. And I walk out, I'm like, what the hell are they talking? They get everybody all excited. I lived through the zero down thing. I made some good money in real estate. I did well. I went shopping. I was young. I started my first business. I went shopping. I walked away from properties.
It's a thing, man. And you know, what's hysterical to me is what the public, it's like a stock. If you're watching CNN and they start talking about a stock that's been raising for 6 months, and you're like, ooh, I got to buy that. Bro, you missed it.
It's too late.
If it's on CNN.
You
know, the greatest time in real estate in the last 20 years, in 2012, I did a seminar myself, and there was an estate planner, and every January when the tax laws change, he brought 1,000 clients in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. 50 people or so would come in for 3 months. I told them all in 2012, it's time to buy, it's time to buy, it's time to buy. Not one person took me up on it because they'd lived through 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. They were scared to death.
Back then but inventory was high. People were running out of the market, and those who were smart was running in. And I was at a table because I had just gone through a similar situation, and I'm at a real estate office, and I used to watch these guys run. They were trying to kill each other to get their offers in first.
Yes. Yes.
And then all of a sudden,
it's crickets. Yep. It's Warren Buffett said it, when the masses are fearful, it's time to get greedy.
Time to get greedy, yeah.
And when the masses are greedy, it's time to get fearful. So, so 2012 was the first one. The second best time to buy in the last 15, 20 years was January, I think it was January 16th or 17th in 2021. 2021, we're just coming out of COVID, but that's when interest rates dropped to 2.68%.
Oh.
And I screamed it on my podcast. I said, y'all, because when I started to get into this venture of being a real estate educator, I'm a super nerd and all I do is research. History repeats itself. You know, hey, Hitler, you should have looked at Napoleon. Don't fight a land war on both sides, buddy. You're going to lose. And so history and understanding the market flow and the data, you have to go way back. And unfortunately, especially with first-time home buyers or real estate investors who have only been doing it for 3 or 4 years because they're deciding this is going to be their new entrepreneurial ship, they're so short-sighted and they only look at the last few years. But if you bought a home in 2021 when the median sales price in the United States was in the 200s, you would have had a interest rate under 3%. And today, just 3 years later, not even 3 years, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 3 years later, you'd be sitting on a home with the median sales price being $427,000. And you'd be sitting on it with a under 3% interest rate.
I brought in during COVID. When the interest rates were.
You did?
Yes.
Score. That was another one. Everyone freaked out. It was 6 weeks.
Yeah, I was on.
It was 6 weeks. I had a home on the market March 14th, which was, in California, we shut down like around St. Patrick's Day on the 17th or 18th. We had 6 offers on Saturday, March 14th. And then they all went away. I'm not kidding. 3 weeks later, we had 4 offers on the home.
Yeah.
So you bought in COVID. That's awesome.
3 stories, 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms upstairs, 2 bathrooms, 2 living rooms, sunroom, got a gym, acre of land.
Dang. Acre of land. So you ain't in Brooklyn.
No, I had a little bit outside of Brooklyn. There you have it, everybody.
Wait a minute. So the gentrification happens and the city board decides to go out to the burbs? What?
Oh,
see, that's
man.
what I'm talking about. Real estate is personal. People come in and they start talking to me about geography and, especially now with the remote buying, man, there are opportunities for people trying to buy a home. Like, hey, here we are, both of us sitting in our houses talking to each other. Ain't no office here. I don't got to worry about a commute this morning. And that can open up major possibilities. It depends on your season of life, though.
Yeah,
You're in your 20s, you want to live in the city.
Yeah, I have an office downstairs too, but and the gym. Who uses it? And also, it's not to brag.
Is it your hanging rack? You got like your laundry all over all your equipment?
No. I actually use the gym. I use the gym at least 3 times a week. We just got a sauna in there, so I definitely go to sit in the sauna. I think I'm saying it.
That's my next purchase.
Yeah,
I got one of those treadmills to go under my desk, so I walk when I work.
Movement, I teach yoga and stuff like that, so I have to stay.
Ooh.
You're 54, I'm 50. Next year I'll be 50, so it's important for me to have those things. And then it's also important as we're having this conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time out and talking with me this morning. It's also important to talk about sometimes your successes. I don't really talk about that stuff often here. I like to really highlight the guests, but that's so that people can know that I'm not just talking.
Oh, I doing what I do, as the number one internet educator for first-time home buyers, to hear your story, I can take in as, in my position, like I immediately equated your purchase to tremendous success emotionally, being stable enough and having the presence of mind to be able to do something during COVID, having that Warren Buffett mentality, that's a tremendous success. And, if you're just listening, I got to tell you, I'm sitting here watching him do his bedrooms, and he's looking around going, wait a minute, how many? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, bro, that is success. When you got to think about how many rooms I have in my house, there's a lot of people in a 2-bedroom apartment that can go, I could see all my rooms from right here. So that's that's really successful to take the leap. I mean it. That's like
Yeah,
something
we got 2 bedrooms in the basement too. So when I say no, so
you said 4 upstairs.
So when I say that's how I was able to give that analogy about buying new. That was the biggest argument. My wife's going in looking at these new construction, and I'm like, I'm not saying I don't want to do that, because you use your imagination. And she almost got stuck in the deal, but they didn't want her in the neighborhood. Didn't want us in the area. And I'm like, good. I'm glad that the lender is pulling all these strings and making it more difficult. Let's find out. Well, then, people, she was upset, but she listened then.
I'd be upset too if I got redlined.
Yeah,
That's
well,
bullshit.
They redlined us right into the perfect place. And
See?
And I was at work, got the phone call. I said, that's the house. I said, don't leave without putting the offer. Don't tell them, don't think about it tomorrow. Don't. She's like, but it looked like a trap house, literally.
Yeah.
I said, yeah. When we're done with it, it's gonna look beautiful.
The imagination, and there are some people that like shiny and new, and what I always try to tell them is I seriously, when I go into houses, I squint, because all I'm looking at is layout. Because you can put in shiny and new, but if I'm squinting through a new build home at 1,800 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and if for the same price I can go find your home with too many bedrooms to count upstairs and bedrooms in the basement and a freaking acre. We don't even do property by acres where I am in Southern California. We do by square feet. A 6,000 square foot lot is gigantic, So by you having that imagination, you've afforded yourself the opportunity for your family to have growth. One of the things about new construction is that's it, y'all. That's the top.
That's the top. You got this. We got these portions over here, and these portions over there, and they all look alike. So we know what everybody's.
And the biggest mistake I see people do is not to compare. And I understand it's your first time buying a home, and and it's usually the people who don't shop at the thrift stores. It's usually the people who don't bargain hunt. It's the people who just go into the department store and they buy the brand at the price, not necessarily on sale, but they know they're getting the good quality. You can still do that with a resale home if you have the right real estate support team, so you can compare new to resale.
And I want to give one more tip, and then we are there. Thank you, David, for
Yep.
If you're doing construction, hire someone on your end, the same way David is saying hiring a real estate agent. This is what I tell people all the time. I'm doing construction, and I'm going to hire someone who knows construction to talk to the general contractor, so that there can be a mediation on my end. Not going to try to talk to the general contractor and negotiate pricing, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I do, but you don't know what the hell you're doing. And when people are doing construction, and someone says, well, what's your budget? Then you're like, well, I just want the best price. That you're not ready.
Yeah. There are so many variables within construction, just like buying a home, that taking a spreadsheet with 7 different items on it, you got to multiply that by 100.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing in your own qualified individual, a vetted expert, to hold your hand through the process, that's going to be essential in all things real estate, including remodeling and construction.
Mm-hmm. I was fortunate that my partner, who passed from COVID, his last project was my house, and they stayed here for 6 months. and we did it together. So every time I look up, I think about, he took me out of the projects and moved me into, showed me how to do business and really transformed my life there. Miss him daily every day. There you have it, everybody. David, last question. What books have influenced and impacted you over the course of your career, and what would you recommend? It could be fiction and nonfiction.
Ooh, well, I started with The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman when I was in high school. That got me going. Yeah, I still think about it every time I eat. I take one bite, and I put my fork down. I think about that. And then, when I was 35 years old when I got really into self growth, and Gary V, jab, 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 right hook, has been a large part of my marketing, which is, understanding to give. Most recently, Atomic Habits is an incredible one. And the hospitality one, I always forget the adjective in it. It's like ridiculous hospitality or something. Oh, I'm an idiot. I read the book, don't remember the cover. But it's a guy who created the world's number one restaurant in the world. Unreasonable Hospitality is the name of the book. And that one and Atomic Habits have really set me in motion recently.
Well, listen, everyone. All of David's information is in right under the title. I used to highlight the title, but then I realized I was confusing people. So I put the title now, and I'll put the person's information right under the title, so that you can click right there, go to his website, listen to the podcast, did a Tyree call, make movement. You don't have to be stagnant, and you don't have to go at it alone. You've heard him say that they make these offerings for nothing. He's just doing it out of hospitality. He's being hospitable. But if something happens when you give, the same way that I'm doing this, I'm not asking nobody for cash jobs, Venmos, Zells, or anything like that. But what I do ask is that you hit like and subscribe, and that you leave a review. If something happens, I can say right now, as we speak, one of my goals, and I talk about writing goals down, and I keep it in my wallet, and I revisit it every day. And my podcast is up 2,500% over the last few months. And it's because you're doing the like, you're hitting the subscribe. And when you do write down your goals and you write down your habits as you're doing your victory walk, don't look at your phone like, something wrong. How does this keep going up? You're not believing yourself, because we're walking in victory together. David is now a part of the Walking Victory family. Enjoy the rest of your day. Walk with your head up. Peace.